So we are on part 2 of a 4-week deal where we're going to be talking about uh, things that the world deems as most essential to least essential. And if you'll remember last week, I showed you this chart. The most important thing that our world has, the height of what can be achieved, is to make the world a better place. It's about this physical, temporary thing. And second to that is bodies. Making sure that our bodies are in peak physical condition all the time. Thirdly to that is our minds, making sure you're getting counseling and those kinds of things. You're emotionally healthy and those kinds of things. And then our spiritual health is just kind of whatever. I mean, it's not really that important. You can pray if you want to. You can send out good vibes if you want. It's not really that important. And we looked at the way last week we started talking about the way that for the church, it's actually the exact opposite. Our spiritual health is the most important thing. But then we talked about the way that just because those other things aren't as important doesn't mean that it's not a great opportunity. For a lot of people in the world, things like recycling and saving the animals and those kinds of things, that's the most important thing in their world. And when you go to them ridiculing that, you miss out on an opportunity. Some people are convinced that if they don't intervene in the political situation, the whole world is going to come to ruin. They're petrified. You start talking about things like Ukraine and Russia, they're so far into fear and panic, they can't even see the way ahead of them. The way to meet a problem in the community is not with ridicule, but to ask yourself, how can I possibly show Christ through this? I'll give you a good example. Transgender people, right? We'd rather just not really deal with that. I mean, it's messy, it's hard, it's awkward. And so then when somebody comes around, you're like, ugh. And that's kind of the stance that the church, the church by and large takes. Not this church, I'm talking about Christians. Just kind of ignore it and hope that it'll go away. But that's exactly the problem, is that we have to engage. We have to be a light. Salt only makes something salty if it actually touches. There's got to be some way of how can we turn this into an opportunity for reaching other people. So last week we were talking about the most important thing to the world. Hey, make the world a better place. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with things like saving the animals or whatever, but that doesn't mean that we have to go to the other extreme and say, well, the planet's doomed anyways, let it all burn. There's a proverb that says that God makes the rich and the poor alike. And I thought that was kind of a what's it called, like a fatalist thing. So no matter what you do, it's going to happen. But I don't think that's what it is. I think that actually gives us all the more reason to have hope. If God makes rich and poor alike, then that means that as I work diligently and use my money wisely, God will give me according to what he wants me to have. And if he wants me to be poor, that's okay. It's not fatalist. It's about surrendering totally to him. So the world around us is dying. That's something that is happening. And you can't really get too caught up on that, because I mean, you could spend your whole life trying to make laws, right? And then in another generation or two, they could undo the laws that you do. But that is still our opportunity. The church is not a social organization, but still impacting the society around us is a great opportunity. Do we exist to feed people, or do we exist to give people the gospel of Jesus Christ? Well, yeah, of course, Jesus Christ. But how do you do that? How do you bring people to God? How do you build bridges in the community? See what I mean? And when they have their most important thing is save the planet, well, then guess where your opportunity is? And I think sometimes we get so caught up in trying to prove a point that we forget, hey, this is a good opportunity. So barely second to save the planet is our bodies. And I think this is really funny, because I was listening to one pastor, and he was going on about how, he was talking about a certain sexual sin. I won't mention which one it was, but he was really going in about people with their disgusting appetites and how they should feel ashamed, and all this, the wrath of God and all kinds of stuff. And meanwhile, this guy was like massively obese. And I was just thinking about, so it's okay to overindulge in the things that you overindulge in, but it's not okay to overindulge in this other area. Kind of like it only applies to you guys, not to me. And it's just something that the church kind of does. We always take the opposite of whatever the society around us is doing. So a good example of that is how the world is so preoccupied with keeping your bodies in pristine shape. So what did we do for the past 50 years? Oh, that's stupid. Overindulge. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be like that. I know young people look at the elderly and they think, well, that's not going to be me. It's not going to be me. I'm going to diet and I'm going to exercise. I'm going to be healthy and it's not going to be me. I really hate to be the one to tell them that death is coming for all of us. Like, you can't run from it. 1 Timothy 4:8 says something that is very interesting because it's really in the middle. First off, physical training is of some value. I've been to some churches that all that they do is make fun of, well, your body's dying anyways, don't take care of it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't take your medicine and, be healthy. I mean, all that does is people look and they say, you kind of seem like an ignorant person. And it's the same thing I was talking about last week with nowadays, people love science. It's something they always lean into. So it's probably not the best of ideas to make fun of science, right? You don't have to agree with what science says about evolution or about this or that or the other thing. But if you go around making fun of science, you've lost your opportunity to engage in an actual meaningful conversation. Did you know that typically when you talk to people about Jesus, it's not going to be a hit and run, drive-by kind of situation? It's going to be an ongoing conversation. Do you know why? Because everybody knows about Jesus in America. Maybe not as much as they did 50 years ago, but it's not something where we're bringing a new religion into the scene. People at least know the idea that there is a religion called Christianity that's a player in the world. See what I mean? So yes, it is of some value. So that kind of contradicts the one thing we've had over the past 50 years. That takes us to the other extreme. But godliness has value for all things. Is it important to make sure you're eating healthy and to take your medicine? Yeah, okay. Your grandkids need you around, right? Your kids need you around. It'd be nice if you were actually there instead of dying slowly on cancer treatment, right? That makes sense. Holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. But the thing that's most important that you hand off to your kids is not keep your body healthy. Eat your greens. Take your multivitamin. Make sure to go to the gym. The most important thing you can pass on is godly exercise, working out the spirit, growing in here, the heart. So you can be short, tall, ugly, fat, stupid. It doesn't matter. What's in the heart, that's something that really does matter. And so how do we go about that? Well, the unfortunate reality is that our body is wasting away. It's inevitable. You will die. You will wear out. You will have problems. I was actually watching a YouTube video. There's this YouTube couple, and the wife got cancer. And she said on the clip when it was like a reveal because they don't do cancer treatment videos. They do these other videos like travel and that kind of stuff. But since she got cancer, that's what they're doing because that's what they're doing. They're not traveling right now. They're going through all kinds of chemo and crap and that nonsense stuff that makes you feel real bad. So obviously she doesn't have the energy to be going out and doing stuff. And one of the comments she made in the video, she said, this isn't supposed to happen to me, which is what we all say when something bad happens to us. It should be someone else, not me. But that's not the part that caught my ear. Then she said, we eat organic, we eat healthy, we exercise every day. It's not supposed to happen to me. And it still did happen to her. It wasn't, if you'll let me use this word, fair. It wasn't fair. It was a situation that she deemed was not fair because it was out of her control. She did all the right things. She checked all the right boxes. And yet at the end of the day, she still had cancer. And this kind of thing is not the exception to the rule. This kind of stuff happens to people all the time. And it brings us an unfortunate reality that our body is wasting away. Fortunately, we really don't have to spend too much time telling people that their body is going to waste away. They're going to figure it out anyways, right? But the good news is that our hope as Christians isn't in our body not wasting away. So that's something that really bothered me. I was praying and praying, God, why don't you take this away? And one of the things that God said, besides you're going to have to get the colonoscopy, he also said this, your hope isn't in dying perfectly healthy. You're still going to die. Your hope isn't in your body's health. And that's hard because in life, that's what we cling on to. We're like, oh, if I just, do this. I won't be like those other old people. They were all just too stupid. They ate pork and they didn't eat their greens. That's why those bad things happened. And but it didn't go down like that. And unfortunately for our world, life has been reduced. Life has been reduced to a system of nothing more than survival. So the most terrifying thing that they can possibly endure is the fact of their body failing them. Why is COVID such a big deal? It's not. Worst comes to worst, you die. Right? I mean, did I misunderstand something? But if you don't know Christ, well, now all of a sudden it is a really big deal. That's all you got. I was reading a survey that was done by a group called Watch Data. It's not like anything official. It's not like they wrote a whole page about it or anything. But they asked the question, what happens after you die? They had different answers that you click on. One was like, I don't know. One was life, like life after death. One was reincarnation. And one said, nothing. You just cease. No hope, nothing. It's the end. The majority of the answers, people answered, nothing happens when you die. It's just over. And that is something that, I mean, it should show us a very obvious area of how we can reach people. But life has been reduced to nothing more than survival. Everybody's worrying about World War III, COVID. And the thing is, we're not enjoying it, but we're trying to have as much of it as possible. Are you seeing this? Nobody's enjoying their life right now, but they're all trying to hold on to and get as much of it as humanly possible. Let me ask you a question. What does it matter if we die at 20 if we're living in constant fear? If we're too scared to even leave our houses and have human contact, what is the meaning of life without any kind of interaction from other people? That just doesn't make any sense, but we're allowing our culture to give us that. Yes, we should be fearful because they're fearful. Yes, we should hide in our houses and watch TV all day because that's what the smart thing is to do, and I don't want to come across as some unscientific moron. There's a question that you could ask, are we men or mice? Another way is, did God give us a spirit of fear? When life becomes nothing more than survival, it has no meaning. And the thing about life is the more you hold on, the less you live. Have you ever tried to live your life without getting hurt at all? I'll never let somebody hurt me ever again. You don't live much of a life, do you? Why? Because love has an unfortunate risk to it of loss. It's just the way of life. And if we allow our culture to bring us into that kind of a mindset, you'll never live for Christ. You'll be too concerned holding on to your own life. I tell you one thing, having a physical disease is one of the most terrifying things in the world because you wake up every day and it's there. And you know that your body is currently failing you and you don't know how long it's going to fail for before you die. I don't know. Could be 80 years, could be 20 years, could be a couple days. I don't know. It's a terrifying thing. And the thing is, we all have that. We all have that situation in our life right now. Any of us could die over the next day. The thing is, we walk in this state of ignorance. It's not going to happen to me because I don't have anything that I know of. Aneurysms do still happen. But we still try to hold on, and we live less and less, but we hold on more and more. That's not the life that Christ has called us to, and we will never find peace in that life. And we will never be able to point other people to peace because it's something we don't have. And I'll say this too, the main problem with living that kind of life is you don't have a purpose for your existence. You just live. You're not reaching for anything. You're not striving for anything. It's not God's kingdom. It's nothing. It's just the continual fear that something bad might happen. It is going to happen. If you sit around thinking, what's the next thing that's going to happen? Something's going to happen. You don't have to wait very long. Just don't worry about it. Live for Christ. Show people the life of Christ. We want to believe it's in our control. Somehow life is in our control, or something's in our control. We don't really know what it is, but something is in our control. And so we'll hold on even to our anxiety. Imagine this. We have crippling anxiety, and we hold on to our anxiety, afraid to let it go, because it's the only thing we have control of. You don't believe me, but listen, okay. I was reading a book done by an actual scientist, and they were talking about the way that the majority of people who have anxiety disorders, there is nothing physically wrong with them. It's not caused from some imbalance in their brain. Sometimes it does happen, but the grand majority of times there's like either 0.2 or 2% of people with anxiety disorders, there's something wrong with their body. The grand majority of the people, so either 98 or 99.8% of people, there's nothing wrong with them. So why is there so much anxiety? Because they got undealt with trauma up here because they're trying to live their life without pain, and it's not working too well. They're trying to close themselves off from others. They're trying to live their life in their house, not leaving. Oh, I don't want to do this because I might have an anxiety attack. Their whole life is geared around that. A physical problem. And the scientist said this. She said, you can at any time rewire your brain. It will take a long time and work and energy and effort, but you can do it. She talked about the way that we have basically two areas of our brain, the front brain and the back brain. The front brain is the logical part. It's the part where when you face something, it's going to sit there and think, okay, well, that didn't work out too well. Let's try this. Well, then there's a back part of your brain, and it's the one that says, holy crap, there's a fire. And there's not really a fire. But the thing is, this part responds very quickly. So when that part responds, you have to consciously step back and say, hold on, and let this part catch back up. Because the reason takes a little bit longer to catch up to the emotion. And you might say, what does this have anything to do with God? Because we allow our feelings to dictate God's truth. We allow our feelings to dictate God's truth. Why else are we scared about World War III? Why else are we scared about COVID? Because our faith isn't in what God says. Our faith is in the heat of the moment, the emotions that we feel. It's overwhelming. It's crippling. I feel like I can't do this anymore. I feel like I can't get through this. That's our feelings talking. That's not reality. That's not our faith. That's our feelings. And it's okay to have feelings. Feelings aren't bad or good. You're going to have feelings. But they don't determine reality. So we hold on to anxiety, hoping because it's the only thing we can control. Proverbs 16:3-4 says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. The Lord works out everything to its proper end, even the wicked for a day of disaster. The part that I want to focus on here is commit it to the Lord. You're living your life. You're going through these different things. There's a lot of scary things going on. Commit it to the Lord. God, you are in control. Okay? There's nothing I can do about this. I am not in control. I cannot stop World War III from happening. I cannot stop an economic collapse. I cannot stop my body getting sick. There's nothing I can do. I'm committing it to you, God. I'm going to work. I'm doing these different things. It's committed to you. And the second thing I want you to focus on this verse is this part right here where it says, the Lord works out everything to its proper end. There comes a point when, yes, you do need to do stuff, but there's also comes a point when you need to stop and say, you know what? God, you're in control of the situation. That's very, very difficult with physical illness. But that's what we're talking about tonight, right? Physical illness. Your body is going to cave in, is going to quit you at some point. Maybe you'll have to live with it for a bit. Maybe you'll die quite suddenly. I don't know. But either way, the Lord is going to work it out. Even through your death, he's going to work it out. He's still in control. He hasn't lost control just because you're scared. Okay? That is the beginning of understanding the peace that we can find. Because our physical bodies are not the second most important thing in the world. Ephesians 1:11 says this, in him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. Let's just kind of focus on a few things here, okay? Predestined is a big scary word, so we won't focus on that one, okay? We'll focus on the smaller ones that aren't as scary. In him we were also chosen. God chose us. Isaiah says he called us by name. Okay, this is good. He planned, let's say that, he planned ahead of time. I can't really say that because then there's going to be planned twice. Predestined basically means that God, before you were ever born, God knew what was up. That's a good enough way to say that. So having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything. Okay, so first off, God had a plan for your life before you were even born. He's totally in control. I think that it was not a surprise to him. And then that next part of that, he, according to the plan of him who works out everything. Once again, another way of saying this, God is in control. God is in control. Is there any hope that you will not get something bad go on to your body. No, there's no hope. You may get something bad happen to your body, and it might not be very pleasant. But is there hope that God is in control? Yes. Yes, there is hope of that. He works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. Oh, that means I don't have to be in control. I don't have to worry about it. The Bible says that we should go to God with bring our prayers and petitions, our requests of him. God, please work this out. And it says, but do it with thankfulness. Don't go to him, with the list of all the, this is what you should do. This is how you should do it. So there is cause for trust and hope in God. God is in control even when he allows bad things to happen. Okay. All right. I can deal with that. Because although we have no guarantee in this life, we know that God has it. He's got it. So there's a slew of health crazes. If you do this, you'll live. In fact, I was just watching a video, and a commercial came up before the video, and it said, this guy's talking, he's all, I studied people living 100, 120 years, and I found out their secret, and I did it. And I was just like, oh, nonsense. Those kinds of people, they're always going to be there. There's always going to be these health crazes. Do this, and you'll live a long and happy, healthy life, and all this. It's not as important how long you live in this life as what you do with the time. And a big part of that is being more concerned about your spiritual health than your physical body. A big part of that. There's these health crazes, there's these diets, cure-alls, vaccines, medications, all these different things. There's a complete over-focus on health as though we can live forever. But here's a series of unfortunate events that leads to this. You can't outrun death. When you struggle with chronic illness, the thing is, and I'm talking to some people here because I know that some of us deal with chronic illnesses, you get one of three things is going to happen. Number one, you're going to get envious of others who don't have the struggle. I wish my body worked like theirs. The second thing, that if that's not your struggle, then the second thing will be, you become bitter at those who deserve the struggles. How come I have to deal with this when they don't? And the third thing that you're going to feel, it's going to be one of these three. You're going to be depressed that you do have the struggle. Maybe you don't want to hand it, maybe you don't want to hand it off to somebody else. Maybe you're not bitter about it, but you just still have this depression that I do still have to deal with it. And either way, that's not the way that God wants us to live with it. First off, I don't know why God gives us all different struggles, but he does. There's no reason to be envious of somebody else because they have their own struggles. This is your struggle. You need God's grace for today. And that's the part I don't like, having to depend on God's grace day by day. See, before I didn't have health problems, I didn't have to depend on God. I could just get through my life. Does that make sense? You're going to say, well, that's a very unspiritual thing to say. I didn't say it was the most spiritual thing to say. I said it was what I really thought. I mean, it doesn't have to be right or wrong. It's what I genuinely thought. And when you're, how do I want to say that? Let me think of how I want to say this. Just a second. I'll move on. And yeah, because I can't think of a good way to say that, so I'm going to just not say it. And people, I think one of the hardest things about... No, I'm going to go ahead and say it like this. I had my anxiety and depression pretty well in order, I thought. Well, then a series of unfortunate events happened, and my depression hit the roof again. It drug out for years, and I was like, wow, this is really not going away. And then I prayed a very unfortunate prayer. I prayed, God, please help me to get complete victory over this anxiety for all time ever. Whew, big mistake. So then the next thing that happened is a series of things that caused enormous amounts of anxiety, and I completely lost control of my anxiety. And that's when I realized the reason I didn't have complete victory over my anxiety was because I wasn't trusting in God with it. I found a system that worked where I could get through it in my own strength. So then when I prayed, hey, God, give me complete victory, he brought something by that made me completely lose control of my anxiety, so that in the process, I could learn what I should have learned in the first place, to trust God with anxiety. And that's how you find victory in your struggles, fully depending on God. I did not know that. That was very unfortunate, or else I wouldn't have prayed that prayer. I would have said, God, I don't want you to have complete control. I don't want to trust in you. Just make it where nothing bad happens so I don't ever have to trust you. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, that's the majority of the time what we really want. We don't really want to have to go through those things. I mean, if I had to say, okay, the only way you're going to learn to trust God is if you get cancer and have to go through chemo for 5 years and you're going to die at the end of it in a lot of pain. Who's signing up for it? Well, nobody's going to say, I want to do that, right? But God sees the big picture, and he remembers that the story doesn't end at death. If there's any reminder that we need of that, just look at Jesus' death on the cross. It seemed hopeless. Yeah, I understand that your life seems hopeless. But after that hopelessness bit is the part with the resurrection. That's the good part. But you can't get to the good part without the bad part. And when you have different chronic illnesses, people oftentimes won't understand you. That's okay. You don't have to try and make everybody understand you. You're going to have people try and fix you rather than listen. Oh, if you do this, here's a miracle cure. This is what you need to do. And it's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You've never had an issue that causes you daily pain. And that's an unfortunate reality of life. But here's the thing. When people say it, realize that they're saying it to try and help you and love you. If they didn't love you, they wouldn't say anything. See, but the problem is that we are too close to the situation because it hurts. We're the one going through the pain. And this can go beyond just physical pain. You can talk about any problem. Nobody understands what I'm going through. That's probably true. They're probably still going to say stupid things to try and make you feel better. Like, hey, I actually did have, it's funny that pastor talked about this, because I actually did have a pastor tell me this. Well, you lost the one kid, but you still got 5. Focus on that. And I mean, I can understand what he was trying to say. And I understand his heart that he was trying to say it in. It was still a stupid thing to say, but he wasn't intending to be stupid. And there's a difference. I've lived a long time of seeing, I haven't lived a long time. I mean, I've lived a long time of seeing people show their true colors. And there's a difference between people saying something really, really stupid on accident and people intentionally being mean. There's a total difference. And I'd rather have that ignorant person who should have closed their mouth but was trying to help you than that person who just always shoots off their mouth just because they're a mean, hateful, spiteful person. And there's something that you need to know if you're going through a chronic health issue. Sometimes it's all you can do to hold on, and you're going to think, I'm so lazy, and you're going to beat yourself up. Here's the thing. It's okay to prioritize getting through the day. That's totally fine, okay? I actually knew a woman who, her house was a mess. It was a pigsty, but she had cancer, and she was in a lot of pain. So she would go through these ruts of feeling really bad about it, and I told her, I said, look, don't worry about it. You've got bigger things to worry about than having a clean house. Well, I should, but you can't. See, and if you're one of those people who you're going through a chronic illness, stop beating yourself up about it. Instead, lean into God and say, look, this is the burden you've given me today, and I will trust you with this burden today. It's all you can do. So yes, all those things happen unfair and all this different stuff. Here's the big idea that I want you to get from this little bit. Your outlook is completely your own. Regardless of how you feel, illness takes its time. It's not going to go away in a day, but your outlook is completely your own. I talk to people with depression about this all the time. I have depression too. I totally understand this. I feel blank, whatever it is that you feel. I can barely get out of bed some days. Okay, all right, that's something that you feel, all right. But what you do is up to you. You can't control your depression. It's just going to come. I'm sorry. But what you do with it, that is up to you. What I deal with a lot of people with depression, and they all do the exact same thing. Because I have depression, I don't have to try. Because I have depression, I don't have to get out of bed. It's a get out of jail free card because I've got depression. You can't say anything. I don't have to leave my house because I've got anxiety. I don't have to. It's not always up to you not always up to you how you feel, but what you do with it, that is up to you. Because a feeling is just a feeling. So when you have these feelings, ask yourself this, so what? I'm depressed. So what? Why does that mean that you cannot live your life for Christ? Why does that mean that you can't trust God through the messiness of it? I tried praying, the depression didn't go away. I didn't say that it would. I said trusting God through it. Your outlook is completely up to you. Illness often isn't fair. You can't anticipate it. It just kind of does whatever it does. The only thing that you can really do is deal with what comes. There's going to be struggles in your life. It's going to be unfair, but all you can't prepare for that. All you can do is deal with it when it comes. But instead, we don't really do that too much. Instead, what we do is we get mad at God because he allowed it to happen or caused it. Or, maybe he's singling you out because he hates you so much. So we get mad at God, but that's like punching your mom because your brother said something mean. Are you going to get mad at God every single time that something unfair happens in your life? How does that make sense? Every single time that my brother says something mean to me, I'm going to go punch my mom in the face. What's that going to achieve? See, God doesn't want us to come to him saying, it's all your fault. You could have intervened. He wants us to come to him saying, look, God, this thing happened, and I need you in this. I need your strength. I can't get through this. Like, I can't do this. John 16:33 gives us a very comforting promise. It means that no matter what you do in life or not do, you're going to have struggles. You don't have to beat yourself up and say, it's all my fault. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. The search is over. Okay. In this world, you will have trouble. Oh, that makes sense. So what does this mean for us? Well, there's a lot of people that say something like this. I'm going to move off to a tropical island out there and I'm going to have fun. Here's the thing. That's not going to give you peace. In me, you will have peace. Well, I just don't understand. I did everything right and still it all went wrong. In this world, you will have troubles, but take heart. I have overcome the world. There's a lot of hope here if you'll seize it. See, we think that we deserve better and we get mad at God because we don't have it. Or maybe we don't think that we deserve better. Maybe we think that others deserve worse. Have you ever found yourself there? Sometimes we're the holy ones, right, God? God, I deserve more. But then sometimes we're on the other point and say, look, God, you do whatever you want to me, but bring him down with me. Okay, he doesn't deserve all the good things you're giving him. Or I was okay with you not cursing them, but now you're blessing them. What's the deal? Well, the thing is, that's not really up to us. If we think we deserve better, it's still not up to you. You're not in control. God makes the rich and poor alike. It's not up to you. And I think that doesn't just talk about finances. I think that talks about a lot in the world. God makes the weak and strong, right? Is my body weak? Yes. Did God make me? Yes. So I think we can say that God makes the weak and the strong. Your healing, now here's the good part. If you struggle with a physical issue, a chronic issue, here's some good bit of hope. Your healing is guaranteed. Now, I'm not going to say it like Bill Johnson does, where you can just name and claim whatever the hell you want. No. Your healing is guaranteed like this. And this is something that gives me a lot of hope to get through the day. It is a matter of when. Worst comes to worst, you carry it till death. Either way, in the end, you will have complete healing. Eventually. The story ends the same for everyone. Your healing is guaranteed. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I don't know when you're going to die either, so I feel like we're even. But one thing that we do is we overlook God's day-to-day provision and the smaller things. See, God hasn't healed me in this big thing, so I'm going to just completely discredit all the little things that God's done. How he woke me up today, how he got me through the day, how he gave me peace, how when I was reading the Bible, I saw that I'd never seen before, how when I was praying, I just knew that God was working the situation. Or how I'd been praying about that for a long time, God answered it. Well, God's never answered my prayers, hasn't he? Maybe you just forgot. See, what we do is we ask and we ask and we ask, and God just overfloods us with goodness. And we forget to say thank you. Just about the simplest and most basic of things. So a better question would be, what are you going to do with the time that you have? You can complain about your physical pain. You can let it stop you from trusting God. You can let it stop you from living. You can do all those different things, but at the end of the day, the basic question comes back, what are you going to do with the time that you have? I wish I had time that wasn't filled with pain, but you don't. I wish I had more time with so-and-so before they died, but you don't. You can say a bunch of different wishes. That doesn't change anything. Instead, what are you going to do with the time that you do have? Well, I'm old and frail now. What are you going to do with the time that you have left? Psalm 23 says something that I always overlook because everybody talks about this verse, but it's a very important verse or chapter. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Now, this is very hard to pray something like this when you are in a place of lack, when you're not in the green pastures, when you're not by the quiet waters, to still stand in faith and say this, the Lord is still my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. And you're saying to say something that isn't? No. I'm saying that this psalm is an acknowledgement of God being in control. The Lord is my shepherd. That means he is in control. He is guiding my life. That's what that means. The Lord is my shepherd. He's watching over me. He's got it under control. I lack nothing. He makes me, and what does that mean? It means that this, with all the things in the world that you don't have, having God makes a difference. He makes me lie down in green pastures. I might not be there yet, but I know where he's leading me. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake, even though I walk through the darkest valley, even though I'm going through some real dark stuff, some bad times. I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So that tells me a few things. Number one, God's my guide. Number two, he disciplines those who he loves. That's what that tells me. And discipline in the Hebrew context isn't what it means in ours. Discipline to us means he gives us a spanking. In Hebrew context, discipline means to train, to encourage, to rebuke, to divvy out responsibility, sometimes a loss of responsibility, sometimes a gain of responsibility. That's discipline. He is walking us through the process. And I know that when I face these difficult times, he told me that they would happen. He's with me through them happening. He's using them. Well, that's good. That's good. My physical health doesn't have to be my sole focus. It doesn't look like quiet waters, but you have to trust God's process. You have to understand that God's clock doesn't really tune itself to yours. Though I walk through the valley, his goodness will follow me. It will overtake me. Psalm 23:6 says, surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's kind of taking the long view. I was going through some real bad stuff. I wish I could talk longer about that, but I don't have time to. And God made it where I was able to go to Florida on a trip, take my trip to Florida, take my family to Florida, and stay in a place for dirt cheap. And I didn't have the car. Somebody bought me the van that I drive. Somebody bought that for me. I didn't do that. And then everything, it worked out. The gas was dirt cheap because of the COVID, and we got all the money provided for us from something else. I don't really want to talk about that, but basically it was given to us. We went basically on an expense paid free vacation where I was able to recoup and just recover and, deal with some things I was going through. And it didn't make the problems go away, but I got some fresh air. But it's easy to look and say, but look at all these bad things that happen. Well, yeah, but look at what God did during the process. I was able to afford a bike and go out on bike rides. And all this, I was so scared because I thought I wouldn't be able to ride a bike anymore. I can. I have to change how often, and I have to change how I ride, but I can still ride. So that's good. And God was obviously showing his favor through the process. And I think that Paul had something happen with his physical body that was a constant annoyance to him. I have no idea what it was. Some people speculate it might have been his eyes, but what he says here is just, why is it popping up in the middle of the verse there? Oh, well, I don't know what's going on there. We'll just start as a therefore. I don't know why I did that. I must have hit a wrong button or something. Therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. He had to teach the youth group. Three times, just kidding. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. That verse means something different to you the older you get. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight, not quite there yet, in weaknesses and insults, in hardships and persecutions and difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Why me? Take this from me. You know, even Jesus prayed that on the night that he was betrayed. And it's definitely okay to struggle. But through the struggle, remember that God's grace, his favor, his goodness, it's sufficient. Well, I just don't think that it is. You're not seeking enough then. His grace is sufficient, and in our weakness, his strength will show. That's what that means. That in our weakness, his strength will show. So your strength will fail. This life will not be fair. You will encounter pain and death. None of those things are your hope. I was getting a certain procedure done, and I really didn't feel ready for it. In fact, I turned to Gracie and I said, I'm not ready. But did you know that it happened anyways? Ready or not, it happened anyways, and then it was done. You might not feel ready for life or death. Here's the thing, it'll happen. You can have God's peace, and you have to remember that sense that you have of not being ready, you'll find a home in God's peace. And when you think that you've been given something that you can't handle, know that God has a way of comforting you and speaking to you in a deeper level than he would have. Do you want your faith to grow, or do you want to live without problems? Think about it. Do you want your faith to grow, or do you want to live without problems? Will Smith was talking about this thing. He was talking about fear, and he talks about the way that we fear what is coming, not what is. He was talking about skydiving is the context, and I think he's crazy. But what he said was still true. We fear what is coming, not what is. I'm scared of what I have to go through. When we're actually in it, we're not in fear, right? We're dealing with the situation. So the trick is to not let our worry run away wild with us. Stay focused on the here and now. Live in the now and trust God through the process now. Well, what about tomorrow when I have to? Well, that's tomorrow. The good thing is God has never given you tomorrow to deal with. He only gives you today. So trust God through the process, not your strength, not your ability to do whatever and to do everything right. You are going to mess up. I knew one guy, he was actually a friend of mine, and he said that he ate broccoli every single day so he wouldn't get cancer. He died of cancer. I'm not joking. See, there's nothing you can do. Life just keeps on moving. That's life. God is in control through it. It's not all futile. Like, oh, life is pointless. No, and life isn't futile. But there is more to this life, and living in fear doesn't change anything. Did you hear what I'm saying? Living in fear doesn't change anything. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Living in fear doesn't change it. You can let God have your life, or you can be in constant fear trying to hold on. Either way, you're not in control. There is more to this life than being physically healthy. There's much more. If you're one of those people that's constantly paranoid about the news, if you're one of those people who think that taking care of your physical body is the most important thing in your life, there's more to life. I know people who make their entire pursuit getting buffer and healthier. I hate to be the one to tell them, but that's a limited hobby. eventually it will run its course and they will die. Living in fear doesn't change anything. It just steals the joy of the Lord. It steals God's plan for today because you have sabotaged yourself and said, I can't do with trusting God today. Instead, I'd rather sit here and be worried, which changes nothing. God wants you to live by faith, trusting Him. He doesn't want you to have all the answers. He wants you to live by faith, trusting Him. See, the world is consumed with physical health, but we will all die, and health is not fair. Even if you do everything right, you check all the boxes, does not guarantee your length of life. But here's the thing that I want you guys to get from all of this. God shows Himself in situations, not always in feelings. There are some of us who have said this exact same thing. God, I don't see you in this situation because we're going by what we feel, by what we see. God shows Himself in the situations. Look over the situation regardless of how you felt. Look over the situation, you'll see how He moved. If you're always waiting for God to show Himself to you by making you feel a certain way, you're going to be waiting a long time, because that means you've built your whole life and reason and logic and theology on how you feel. And you'll never find God in the details, because all that you will ever find by being slave to your feelings is more fear, more anxiety. You cannot look to whether God was faithful to you in your life by what you feel He did, but by the fact of what He did. God shows Himself in situations, not always in feelings. Sometimes He will show Himself in feelings. So I guess the big thing that we can do in all this is control your thoughts. Stop letting your worry run wild. You are going to die. Stop worrying about it. Lord, thank You for everything You're doing in us. Help us to trust in You with our physical health. And Lord, as we struggle through trusting in You and learning more and more every day what that means, help us to also come alongside others who are hurting and to be there to listen to them and to encourage them and to help point them towards You. And God, we thank You for everything You're doing in these situations. God, I know that You're still in control. Lord, I pray that You give us the grace that we need to get through the next week and to trust You more and more throughout the next week as we deal with these different struggles. We love You, Lord. Amen.